The public hearing before City Council on Monday, January 24th, 2022 at 6:45 p.m. Roll call, Ben. Please.
Member McLeaser?
Present.
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member Warren?
Here.
Member Volt?
Here.
Member Matheny?
Here.
Member Orr?
Here.
And Member Shroya is absent.
I ask that we please excuse Matt Stroya.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. City Council is seeking public comments on the following items. We can look at our agenda. The first item on our agenda is Ordinance 58-2021. Ben, will you please read the title for the record?
An ordinance amending Chapter 1133, single-family and two-family residential district regulations, specifically subsection 1133.08D, swimming pools, and Chapter 1707, swimming pools, spas, and hot tubs, specifically subsection 1707.01B of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton to lower the minimum required height of fencing for swimming pools to 4 feet.
Chairman Revolt, you have talked about this at great length. Would you like to summarize this item for us?
Yes, this is what we call the Soretta rule, and it will take the height of the pool fence from 5 to 4. The rationale is that 4 feet is a standard height, which is readily available, 5 feet being a custom height. So we're responding to that section, that request. We align our standard with the industry. It comes to us with the recommendation, clearance of Planning Commission, and upon the recommendation, from Marty. So.
Okay. At this time, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of Ordinance 58-2021? Okay. At this time, is there anyone here wishing to speak against Ordinance 58-2021? Okay, the last opportunity for anyone wishing to address council on this item. And then are there any further comments from council at this time?
I think we've been all invited to Mr. Soretta's home to hop the fence on the first warm spring evening. So we'll be there.
Okay.
After dark.
Okay. The second item on our agenda is Ordinance 70-2021. Ben, will you please read the title for the record, please?
An ordinance amending various sections of the City of North Canton zoning code and adding thereto new definitions and establishing a new chapter in order to establish a source water protection area and provide for the regulation of substances for the protection of groundwater resources within the source water protection area.
Chairman McLeaser, would you like to summarize this item for us?
Sure, this is an item that came before, I guess it was the previous council, went to Planning Commission, and now is back here for public comment. It's a measure that would protect our water and create a, basically designate different areas in different zones. So I don't know if Patrick has anything you'd like to add on that?
Yes, this was a matter that has been worked on for the better part of a decade and has fallen short of implementation. So we picked the ball up on this. It does pretty much what Mr. McLeaster was indicating, is establishing new zoning over top of certain areas wherein the flow of source water to our wells within a 1 year or a 5 year timetable. And if new business is going to locate into one of these designated areas, we want to make sure that all the necessary protocols are taken to protect our water from spills of things that might be housed on site.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Diorio.
Okay.
Mr. Diorio, if you might also note for the record that this legislation extends our authority beyond our corporate limit, does it not?
Yes, it does. The state legislature has created this through the Ohio Revised Code that allows us to extend this to areas where our well fields draw their water from. So, I mean, this goes into Jackson Township, Lake Township, Plain Township. And in order to get this authority, the revised code requires us to adopt it internally within our city boundaries first. And then once that's done and in effect, I will be meeting with the officials in the townships to talk to them about getting them to adopt these measures through their own zoning boards.
Okay, at this time, is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of Ordinance 70-2021?
Chuck Osborne, 307 Fairview Street, Southeast, North Canton, Ohio. I'd just like to clarify the historical record on this. This city did have a SWAP committee, Source Water Area Protection, back in the early part of the 2005 time period, 5-8, something like that. It was pushed through by former councilman or council member Kathy Magel. It was in existence actually for about at least one term, 4-year term, I'm guessing 5-year term. And prior councils failed to renew membership on the committee. And I know one, Mariam Bauman, was on the committee, and her term, she termed out, and this council refused to reappoint her. So the SWAP committee basically was let go out of existence. So the record, I don't understand where the statement that we've been working on this for 10 years. We've had one, and it was in existence for a period of time, and then council just let it go out of existence. So I just want to provide that clarification.
May I?
Yeah, I'll go through. You go ahead.
Okay. I think, Mr. Osborne, you have ignored a critical distinction between the existence of the Source Water Committee and what this particular piece of legislation does. The former was a committee who carried really no legal authority and operated inside the confines of the city of North Canton. As we noted in the introduction, this particular piece of legislation extends the city's limited zoning authority outside its boundaries to protect its source water. That is a critical distinction. I would argue that the committee that had been formed, that Mr. Osborne referenced, was essentially toothless. It had no authority. Ergo, its utility was nominal at best. This particular legislation gives the municipality, with the authority of the Ohio Revised Code, the ability to intervene and protect its well fields. With one exception, are outside the city. 2 exceptions, I'm sorry, are outside the city. This is a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I just want to echo that this is something that's completely different than what was in the past. There was no source water protection plan. The provisions of the Ohio Revised Code didn't exist back then as they do today. But we've adopted this plan that goes through zoning, prohibits certain uses, even outside our city. It gives us the legal authority to act with or without township consent. And the people that comprise this committee today are people that are knowledgeable about what happens when there's a spill, what could happen to the water, and this will include officials from the townships as well. So, you know, as well-meaning as the previous efforts may have been, the people that comprise this committee are people with the experience and knowledge of working with water and dealing with the impact if something happens to it. We didn't have that before. It was a citizens committee before, and pretty much dealt with water spilling of stuff on the roadways or things like that.
I'm not going to dispute. I don't know whether the state has, in the last 10 years, has broadened this authority by municipalities with their water systems. I just want you to acknowledge that there was a committee set up with the mindset, the awareness that we need to protect our water resources.
Duly noted.
So, I'm not trying to throw water on this. It should never have gone out of existence. It should have been expanded years ago when we had one. But the mindset is they didn't want to have citizenry urging council to look into areas such as the Hoover District or the East Maple well field and issues like that. So I applaud this. I'm not trying to throw water on this. To use a pun, somebody giggled and I just now caught on. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, is there anyone here wishing to speak against Ordinance 70-2021? The last opportunity for anyone to address this issue on council, and any other comments from council members?
Sounds like a great ordinance. What councils did in the past is in the past. We're worried about now and in the future, so it's a great thing.
Agreed.
Okay. Okay, moving on. The third item on our agenda is Ordinance 72-2021. Ben, will you please read the title for the record? And it's on the back sheet of this page.
An ordinance amending Chapter 1136, Main Street District Regulations, specifically Section 1136.05, Schedule of Permitted Uses of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton, to change drive-through facilities to a conditional use in the Main Street South zoning district.
Chairman Revolt, would you please summarize this?
Thank you. As you may recall, when we adopted the new zoning for Main Street, we did not include drive-throughs as a use in some of the districts. One for our consideration tonight was the Main Street South zoning district. The intent of the zoning ordinance was to encourage uses other than drive-throughs. That was the overall intent. However, we have a party that has leased the site of George's Foreign Current Service. That has been a problem location since George retired from the business. And this individual is going to open a coffee shop, and he would like a drive-through window. So, after some discussion and deliberation, we've made the recommendation to the Planning Commission, which is okay, that we would allow for a drive-through on a conditional use, which means that if George's, or if the coffee shop discontinues its operation, sits, has to come back. It's got to come back to the city. So we think this is a good way to promote use of the site. It's consistent with what we already have. We have a drive-through at Walgreens. So we're not granting something that is extraordinary.
Okay. At this time, is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of Ordinance 72-2021?
I got a quick question, Daryl, on that. How about for future businesses that could be built or something of that nature, would they have to come to us with
Yes.
the grant for
It's a conditional use.
conditional
Each
use?
and every use will require its own authorization. And again, the intent, I think, for Main Street was, we did not want Main Street to become a source for lots of drive-through activities. We wanted buildings. We want capital investment, maximum use of the property, and hence the initial hesitancy to do it. So that's why we got the conditional use here.
Okay, thanks.
Is there anyone wishing to speak against ordinance 72-21? Last opportunity for wishing to address council on this item. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yes. I'm not gonna take a side on this. I just wanna call to your attention, we had a fatal accident down there in that area a number of years ago. We have traffic that runs the length and breadth of Main Street, far in excess of the speed limit of 35. And I don't like the signal that this sends to the public. Hey, we can change our code, our requirements at a whim. And that's just what you're doing. I mean, we just changed the zoning code. Supposedly it was thought through, and now you're going back and tweaking it for whatever somebody who comes along and says, hey, I want to have a drive-through for my coffee shop. You have rows down there. I haven't gone by and looked at how close proximity all this is. Can you guarantee them that having a drive-through is going to make this a business that's going to blossom into something fantastic? How many coffee shops with drive-throughs do we need to have? So I just want to call it, we have traffic issues. If you've ever walked along Main Street, and that's what everybody wants, we want a walking city. You walk down our sidewalks, and within almost a hand's length, you have a car that's doing at a minimum of 35 miles an hour, and most likely 45, 50, I've seen them. So, not too keen on adding the more ingress, egress up and down Main Street like this. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any further comments from council? Okay. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. In both seconds.
Meeting adjourned. Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting adjourned. We'll take about a minute. Good, Ben?
Yeah, Meryl would appreciate 90 seconds.
All right.
to-
Meryl, we've got 90 seconds. No problem.
I'll let you know that.
Yeah, you tell me.
Sure.
Sure.
So the fire department does jump on my keys. Yeah, I might move this way a little bit because of the fire door. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay, I now call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting on January 24th, 2022 at 7:03. Roll call. Dan, will you please call the roll call?
Member Orr,
Here.
Member Matheny,
Here.
Member Revolt,
Here.
Member Warren,
Here?
Member Wire,
Here.
and Member McLeister.
Here.
Member Story is absent.
And a motion to excuse Member Scoria.
Revolt moves.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we'll start with Community and Economic Development. First up, Attorney Revolt, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We just discussed proposal to lift the height of, or reduce the height for fencing around swimming pools from 5 to 4. I don't think we need to have any other discussion.
The planning commission's recommendation.
Planning Commission did recommend favorably, did it not?
They also recommended 2 additional changes to take out.
Yes,
Do you have it with you?
It was the live fence,
yes.
to remove the live fence.
And on top of above ground pool.
Yes, and then taking away the provision which allows the pool to be calculated for part of the fence.
Yes.
You're going to speak up, can't hear you.
So there was 2 conditions planning commission recommended. One was to remove the allowance for a living fence, and the second one was to allow above ground pools to be calculated in the fence height.
What was that last word?
Calculated in the fence height.
Any questions? If there are none, we'll entertain a motion that we have legislation. I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very good.
For clarity, with or without the planning commission.
With the planning commission's recommendations. Good call on the planning commission's part. I think we've had some problems with live fence issues in the past, so this just eliminates that. All right, let's move on to item 3B. We are at a point on the Kmart Properties where we need to transfer those properties from municipalities' ownership to the Community Improvement Corporation. We have 2 parcels that are referenced in the ordinance. 2818 is the residential triangle that lies at the very rear of the property, residentially zoned property. And then we have 2582, which is the Kmart property. For those who, we have a map here, you can see it. All right. For those who are unfamiliar with how these property transfers will work, is following the guidance established by the Ohio Revised Code. Municipalities are authorized to transfer property that they own to their Community Improvement Corporation. The Community Improvement Corporation then can sell that property. And that is the process that we will follow. The proceeds then will flow back to the municipality. And those will be used to liquidate our expenses of debt. Mr. Bureau, do you have anything to add?
I think you covered it well.
People have asked, what's happening? And this is the first step after acquisition. Make something happen.
They're happening.
And those happenings will be disclosed in due course.
I have a question, Darryl.
Yes.
So at what point will the property 192 change from residential to commercial use in this
Excuse me, would you
process?
go back to the map, please?
Yeah.
That may not change.
Council changed the zoning for that parcel to be included in the Main Street North
Main Street
Gateway, so, previous council.
So it's already been changed then? Okay.
Thank
Not
you.
reflected on the auditor's site. Why the question?
Sorry, was there a question?
No, the auditor, it just hasn't caught up. I don't
Oh, yeah.
think the auditor's caught up with the zone.
I think in here it says it was residential, you mentioned residential.
Yes.
I may have referred to it in your packet as the residential rectangle.
Yes.
That was my shorthand for that property. I apologize for that cause.
I just wanna make sure as we move forward with this, that it is zoned properly for what the use is gonna be, so that we don't hold up or delay the development.
Good point.
I don't think we're gonna have a problem with timing on that, Dave. At the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I'm not at liberty to discuss anything else, but I don't think this is one that will necessarily be one of the first to see development in the area. Would that be a fair assessment, Mr. Fiore?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I didn't hear you either.
I said this particular parcel is probably not likely to be one of the first to be developed. Would that be a fair assessment?
I'm not gonna comment on that.
All right, we'll let that stand as is then. Okay?
Okay.
So what we need to do is, on this matter, we need to have this, and I'll make a motion to place it on the agenda for our next council meeting, not this council meeting, but a forthcoming council meeting. I want to emphasize the fact that this particular piece of legislation does have within it an emergency clause, and it is important that we execute this ordinance in a timely fashion. We need to do this as soon as possible. So, all I'm saying is just make sure we count noses. We've got a date. We really need to get this particular one done.
I think what's the plan for that?
Very good then. So I'll make a motion that we advance 3B.
I'll second.
Moved and second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Okay, I'm up next with Finance and Property. This year, kind of time of year, we run into projects that started before, and we have a lot of things going. And one of the things we always do as council is anything over $50,000 comes to us to approve. And Gina, do you want to talk about any of that, or?
This is the list of those items over 50,000 that need Board of Control approval. So this is the entire list, and it was already approved with the initial budget for '22.
Yep, so just kind of a continuation. It is not an emergency, so we'll move that to the next meeting as well. So do I have a motion?
Can I have a question,
Sure.
real quick, to Gina, just because I wasn't able to find it in the budget stuff? The equipment being financed for the sludge lagoon, what is that equipment?
For the what?
For the sludge lagoon cleaning?
That is not
financing
being
equipment?
financed.
That's not,
That is not one of those that are being financed. The financed pieces will be the valve turning truck,
yes,
the salt dome structure, but we are not adding that. We're not ready to add that at this time. The other one is the asphalt paver with the different pieces of equipment that comes along with that. And, no.
We had multiple people editing it at the same time and suspect somebody deleted something from the list but did not update paragraph 3.
okay.
Okay, any other questions on any of those items? Okay, I move to adopt. Do I have a second?
Revolt seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move that up. And the second one, appropriation of funds for current expense. Gina, any comment on that?
This will be our first amendment for 2022. We have an addition of $8,600 for council operating phones and tablets for technology purposes. We need to move $10,000 that was originally budgeted in the street fund in error. It should have been in the general fund for lands and buildings. So we just want to move that so that we can start spending that out of the correct account. And then we did have a second page to the operational maintenance, traffic lights, and related budget that was missed when we entered those, so we would like to enter that for $85,000. Those are various items under other operating. And then we will have a return of an advance at the end of the year to close out the funds. the Parks project needed $731,800 of an advancement from the general fund. We did apply for that reimbursement from the state, and so as soon as we receive that refund, we'll send that money back to the general fund.
Okay. And for the new members of council, we do this a number of times, right? This happens a lot, just like it happens with our own checkbooks at home. So thank you, Gina, for being on top of that. Are there any other questions to any of these? Okay. I motion to adopt. Do I have a second?
Revolt will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, we'll move that forward. Okay, Chairman Orr, the floor is yours for ordinance and rules.
Well, discussion of drawing up new city wards. This hasn't been done in quite some time. Population shift makes one ward a lot more populated than other wards. We want to try to balance it. I think we've come up with two maps. If you want to put those on. The first map,
Well, these are our current ones.
oh, these are our current wards as they stand now. Take a look at that. Oh, no, that's the wrong one. Okay. Map one, map two. Map one, as you can see, it's going from basically the south of Everhard up to the West Maple. And West Maple, then in Ward, what is that, Ward 2, I believe, goes up to, from the north side of West Maple up to, Ryan up that way. And then you have, Ward 3 over here, and then Ward 3 down here, which is extending over to Monticello, or pardon me, over to Walsh College and up north, and then you have the other one up, north of, East Maple, all the way up. Little effect, it's basically the same area. I'm sort of favoring this. It's, the smallest ward will be Ward 1 at 4,400, and the largest would be Ward 2 at 4,500. So most of the wards are really close. So if you go to map 2, you'll see where, we'll start with Ward 4, is going over to the Knolls and clear over to Market Avenue and Monticello. You'll have, Ward, Ward 2 is gonna go along, Main Street all the way up to, 7th and, Easton, all the way over to Market. Ward 2 is gonna be, basically from, Glenwood all the way up to 7th Street, and then you'll have the other ward basically from 7th to Orion.
Hey, John,
Yes.
since this was a little more jumbled up, could you tell us what the colors of each ward is? Just,
That would help.
yeah.
If you look on the back of your description of these, page 14,
Yeah, I looked at that and I,
you have that?
So in both
Okay.
blue is Ward 1, yellow is Ward 2, red, pink is Ward 3, and green is Ward 4.
and I had seen that, I just didn't know that was accurate, okay.
So you see it, yeah. That.
What's the green at the northern end?
That's on the base map is Bobolink Golf Course.
So why is it colored in?
It's part of the map that the coloring is built on top of.
It's not Ward 4.
No.
Okay. So there's the two maps that we've come up with. Council, I don't know what your thoughts are on these two maps. I kinda like Ward 1, or map 1 over map 2, pretty much consistent with what we have now.
Yeah, I think that'd be my preference as well. I think it's just easier to understand and look at.
And really, when was the last time we redistricted the wards? Was it 72?
The last ordinance reference in the codified ordinances was 72. So
And this is,
there may have been minor changes since then.
and right now, the largest ward in the city is
Ward 2 has approximately 5,500 people
5,500. You need to balance it out.
Currently,
currently.
Yeah.
yeah, I like map 1 as well. I do think it's easy to understand. Kind of like the least amount of changes, but again, I'm not convinced that most people know what ward they're in anyways. So, you know, like as far as we were looking at the public, I don't think most people realize where they are and where those boundary lines are.
And for the current council, either ward, you're living in your current ward now. And in the future, correct? Except,
I think I would change,
you would definitely.
if we did in map 2.
Right.
I think I would change on that too as well.
Least amount of changes is in map 1, and I would kinda like to see that passed.
I would support map 1 also.
Is there anyone totally against it, or?
I think it even has the least variance as well, so
Least
that
amount of
makes
changes,
sense.
and they're all within a couple hundred of each other, we can make it better. All right, so we wanna probably move this on to a future council meeting?
Well, I'll bring a written version of Ward 1 back to the next committee.
Yeah.
Because we'll have to make legal descriptions of the chunks.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so you need a motion to place this on the agenda?
Or he is gonna come back with.
Are you
Are you gonna bring it back to committee, or are you going?
Back to committee, yes.
Oh, okay.
Very good.
Okay, so moving on to Parks and Recreation. Chairwoman Wyrick.
Okay, so we have item 6A, which is regarding setting prices for Dogwood Pool. I've spoken with Patrick about this. We're looking at a slight increase, which really is based on increase in use of the pool as well as increased costs of supplies. Patrick, is there anything you want to add?
Well, I think I would begin by saying that, you know, the management agreement that we have concerning pools with the YMCA, we have a 5-year agreement. We're in year 3 of that 5-year agreement. We've been generally very pleased with the direction that we've been going, better utilization, providing a better user experience there, and that comes with frequent meetings with Y personnel to make sure that the pool can be all that it can be. So it's a recommendation from the Y that we increase the day pass, guest pass to $14 per person. That is from 11. Last year, most of the other pools around us moved to 15, so we were the low operator, and that brought a lot of unwanted traffic from outside our community to our community. And they're recommending that season pass holders would be eligible to bring their guests on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday based on interactions with guests and season pass holders. The weekend is when season pass holders utilize the pool the most. Guests would be limited to 2 guests per pass holder. Anyone can purchase a day pass Monday through Thursday. The pool is underutilized Monday through Thursday. After 5 p.m. every day, the day pass will be reduced to $10 because there's only a few hours left in the day. But some people do like to do that. As you recall, I think you may have heard a report that from May to last council that the number of passes sold last year, season passes sold was a record, over 3,400 passes. So we think we're doing the right thing. And the formula that has been used historically to establish the season pass rate has been a multiple applied to the day rate. And that formula has worked well over the years. It's basically, you know, you're a family, you got 2 kids, how many times you're gonna go to the pool, what's that membership cost versus if I just bought day passes. And we try to keep that rate around 2.4 times for a family. So the rate, as an example then, if we look at the city residents, the single membership would go from $80 to $84. The family rate would go from $192 to $202, and the senior rate would go from $40 to $50. And then there are non-resident rates. And then there are rates after the pool opens, you know, that we sell a pass to, and it's higher. So we encourage, we discount getting your membership pass ahead of time before the pool opens, whether they're a city resident or not resident.
And I believe the Y also provides a discount if you're a Y member, is that correct? Is that remaining?
Well, that would be, yes, the Y does provide a discount to its members of that pass.
Are kids under 6 still free, or is that passed, or is that current, is that in this rate?
With someone who, yeah.
Kids under 6.
Pardon?
He's asking if kids under 6 get in at a lower rate or for free.
I think they were free in the past, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
there's no change to that.
No change to that?
To that. So these are the only changes that we're recommending is preseason, after it's open, there's two grids, city resident, non-resident. That's all that we're recommending, that we go along with that change.
Does this change next year's rates to not be approved by council? Does this give you the authority to change rates in consultation with the Y going forward?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up,
every
because
year?
you get a little just too focused on the rates, and I really want to talk about, what I think are best management practices, and I've been around enough to know from viewing it from the outside, sitting where you sit, versus to see, you know, how the sausage is made inside the asylum. And I think that we need to make sure that we continue to apply a business-like approach to all the assets that we manage. And so, you know, whether it's a pool, whether it's a pavilion, or whether it's a golf course, that we're applying business management practices to try to make sure that these facilities are not over time providing a drain to our general fund. As you all know, you've been around, you understand that the general fund has been a catch-all, and there's just only so much available in the general fund. So we appreciate what the voters had done to approve the operating levies to correct that imbalance, and we just want to make sure this doesn't get in an imbalance. We had an agreement with the Y that for a 3-year period, we were going to set aside, each party was going to set aside funds to the Dogwood Pool Capital Reserve account, that we would be able to accumulate some funds for the renovations that we had spoken about with council before. This upcoming cycle, we want to renovate that pool house and the splash pad. We've applied for a capital grant, waiting to hear the results of that. But in the meantime, we're also trying to bank our own money. So as we look at 2021, we had a surplus at the pool of $125,000. So the year before we didn't in COVID. So we're getting, you know, back to numbers that might be a little bit more historical, that the pool is operating in a plus, and it's not that money, we want those funds to go back into the capital investment in the facilities. That was what was established by council a few years ago, was to try to do that. We took a hiatus with COVID as one of those, let me rephrase that, so a 3-year period, we were gonna set aside funds, but one of those years was 2020, and the pool was basically shut. So we've extended that an additional year.
I can support, administration controlling the day-to-day operations, especially when we've contracted out to other entities to run these assets. But I would ask, since council's gonna be the ones getting the questions on the rates and when that's coming about, that as council as a whole, before rates go up, that we would get a listing of income by source and expenses by category prior to a public announcement of changes, so that, we can confirm and stand behind the decisions to raise the rates because either we're not making money or the need for improving those capital funds for the investment back into that. But I would like to see that from Gina before we go into next year, if there's a rate increase, so that we would have information to give back to the public when they ask.
If I can add too, as a point of reference on rates, the closest pool to us is Clearwater Park, which is just north off 619 in Uniontown. Their day rate is $20 per person and $13 if you're under 30 inches. So it's a little more objective than our subjective. If you're 6, I don't know, you could be really tall. I mean, you're just in free. They are still free under 6, but theirs would be $13 for most children and $20 for everybody else. So I mean, coming up to $14, it's a very similar chlorinated pool. We're not looking at other ones like Clay's Park and that's obviously a giant, water park with a lot more water activities, but that's the one we kind of reference closest to us.
On Main Street or Cleveland Avenue?
Yeah, you would take North Cleveland Avenue
619.
to 619 and then head east.
Oh, okay.
It's called Jellystone Clearwater now. They changed a few years ago. And just to Mr. McCleister's point, yes, it's a 25% discount given to season passes if you are a YMCA member.
Thank you for the
Yes, yeah.
clarification.
So council will still have a vote on this and stuff as it stands now, or no?
I'm proposing that we do it much like we do in the recreational facilities rental, is that a notice would come to city council, proposed rate increase 2 weeks prior to the rates going into effect. Mr. Matheny is asking for some additional documentation to precede that. Administration supports that, but it wouldn't require a vote of council.
Any other discussion?
Make the motion that we'll move that to the agenda.
The vote will
As long
second.
as we can add the information about providing the financials.
Now, we want this on emergency, correct?
Correct.
Yes, because the Y is anxious to start the pre-season selling of passes.
Gina, we can get what Dave needs.
That actually would come from the Y, since we contract with the Y to manage the pool area, all of those documentations and those records are at the Y.
And I'm sorry, I thought that was gonna be for the next time.
For next time, because we're
Next
not
time.
gonna have a vote on the
Okay.
increases. We're
Okay.
going to correct, or to accept these
All right.
increases
Great.
based on the information, but I would like to have that going
For next
forward.
year. Yeah.
He does give us an annual review at the end of every year, or even mid-season, he'll send us an email with sort of an update of here we are so far. We'll certainly share that when we receive it.
Why don't you give the last one for Dave?
Sure.
And then, and including in that, would you throw in the budget line item that has the reserve amount for those capital funds, so you know where that's at? and where
Yes,
it's
at
going?
the end of last year, and we can talk about it when we review the financial report, but I actually established its own fund so that we can track those monies from year to year to year.
I think did it have 52,000 in it?
Correct.
I think so,
Yep.
okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move that to the agenda. So then we have item 6B. Administration has requested this legislation regarding the purchase of property by the city. I've spoken with Daryl as chair of the Economic Development Committee and understand that this acquisition is an important part as we move forward with the development near Maine and Stratavon. But Patrick, I know you can fill us in on far more, so if you can
Yes,
give us more information.
So, in working with the mayor, on assembling our land banking operations and working with the chair of that committee. We've had some direction that we were going to try to utilize our better, let me rephrase that, we would like to utilize land that is currently underutilized for commercial purposes. So we've acquired 30 acres around the Kmart building, and we believe that that land can be, once it's developed, contribute to the property tax base, contribute to the income tax base. It's lands along Main Street. The mayor recognizes that when this is developed, there will be a loss of green space. And so in an effort to preserve green space, we've combined this with a long-standing, I shouldn't say real long-standing, it's been about 5 years when I came in and we wrote the park master plan. We recognized that Ward 1 did not have a significant municipal park. There's Rotary Park, which isn't much, honestly, of a park. It's more of a parking lot in the front and a trail that goes into the woods. And that's about it. There's nothing really to do there. So, but being consistent with the other parks, a couple neighborhood, 2 very nice neighborhood parks out in Ward 3, what will be the Dogwood Inclusivity Park in Ward 2, and of course Price Park in Ward 4. We recognize this as an opportunity to obtain some green space and create a new municipal park. So there was land available. I think the parcel number is in your packet, 9209052. Geographically, this is land approximately just under 10 acres, around 10 acres, behind Discount Drug Mart, TD Tailgate, Pizza Oven, and then heading west to the backyards of Arnsby Circle, the southern edge of East Wind Circle, and then I think Ben's got it there. So that would be the land that we're purchasing, and then we've also acquired 2 lots to the south of that parcel that connect to Stratavon, and so we have the formation of a new park that would have an entrance or exit on Stratavon and on Orient. So similar to kind of how Price Park has an entrance on 2 different streets. But this land was owned by Joe Kaplia, and in the negotiations for this, in getting what was land zoned commercially, there are some it was never developed. Joe's owned it for almost 30 years. We recognize that there are mining issues in this area, and so it really doesn't support the idea of some commercial structures on it. It's ideal for parks. It certainly support playgrounds and the dog park or whatever else council desires to develop in that way up there. So we thought it was a good opportunity. We approached, negotiated a price. It comes out to be about $39,000, or under $40,000 an acre. This includes, this amount includes the naming rights to the park, Kaplia Park. And we will certainly be seeking other partners in the development of this park, other amenities in there, sponsors, the type of approach that Ms. Farina has been working on with Dogwood. Mr. Kaplia is in this thing, this agreement here is that we are carrying Mr. Kaplia is going to carry the note. So the interest rate on this is 2.875, and this will be for over a 20-year period. There is a provision in the agreement that would allow for the agreement to be mutually terminated early, should any of Mr. Caffrey's heirs wish to not have it continue out over 20 years. We would do that. There's no down payment required, just the initial first payment should we move forward with this acquisition. So we think it's a great, recap, it's a great opportunity to preserve the green space, make it meaningful green space that people can access, and put some amenities in the park, with the thrust being things that we don't currently have, to try to provide some balance to our park system. It's not just a playground. It could be a dog park, or other surveys that we've done that the council has authorized. There were certain amenities that folks were looking for in our park system that we presently don't have. That's it in a macro view.
In the agreement on the purchase, Patrick, in the agreement on the purchase, will the city have ownership of the property and the financing only, or does it transfer upon completion of payments?
Transfers immediately, so the city will own it.
So currently it's listed as agricultural property
It's currently listed as commercial.
on the auditor site, agricultural.
It's zoned commercial. For general business, whatever that was up there.
Okay.
That's what it was when it came in from Plain Township and the city annexed it.
I was just going by what was on the auditor's site. Classification is agricultural, land use code, agricultural.
Any other questions, discussion, this? You good, Dave? Okay.
I guess I have concern, and I think we can address this as we're expanding the parks. Are there funds available to develop this? And I like the idea of Catherine and what they've done with donations to the other parks. But do we actually have a plan, or are we just purchasing now with hopes to have a plan in the future?
Well, I think, we have the outline of a plan that we put together, and, up until Catherine and I got here, there was no plan. We had nothing. And now we have something, and we've been very successful in raising a lot of money from a lot of sources, and exercising some of our contacts in Columbus to make all this stuff possible. As it relates to this, you have to move, if you wait to develop a plan, the land may not be available. So the land is available, we should obtain it. I think that we negotiated something that is within the city's budget to afford, basically, 20 payments, whatever that works out to be. Julie, you'll have to help fill me in. It's
$26,417.06 a year.
in order to get it, and then we're gonna have to develop what it is that you wanna do there. What is it that you wanna build? I've already talked with an architect, and we'll start coming up with just a master development plan of the park, but we have to know what we wanna put in it, what type of amenities, and then it's gonna be putting a plan together with Catherine and myself and the administration, the mayor, the council, and who we're gonna approach to get funding to do these various things.
Well, and if you don't have the land, you can't go for grants.
Can't get, yeah.
And that's how we were so successful before, and now that we're hopefully on their grant.
Radar?
Yes, radar, which we weren't.
We were not.
Right.
Prior to the two of us being here, we did not apply for a single, we
Right.
never applied for a capital investment grant from the state.
Right. So, and once they start giving, and there was a lot of money given last year, we're kind of on their system. And we had a lot of ideas when that first money came through, remember? I mean, there was a plan A, a B, a C, and, so when you talk about plans, we really did have plans. And then we'd scale back, but this is kind of part of that, so.
I think you also have some input from the community survey that was done over the summer.
Yeah.
Again, there was some interest in expanding park. And there was a strong desire, correct me, Ben, if I'm wrong, but there was a strong desire for a dog park.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if anyone's familiar with Plains, I'm not sure that, fortunately, it's probably not capital intensive.
No, it's
Clear
not
a site
really.
and get a fence and run some water in. And, I mean, I've seen one down in Dublin that's absolutely fantastic. It's a multi-corral dog park with water and a bathing pad for the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cool. So maybe, you know, Dave, to your point, is that I think we can get in with a modest amount of expenditure, get started. And as Catherine's proven, you know, once we get a park up, you know, we may carry it at some council may want to have it evolve at some future point. We're not building it for eternity. Get it up, get it established, and then if we decide we want to change its focus or improve it, the future council can.
Yeah, you make a good point. Someone brought up a good point of having the land already. When you reach out to ODNR, Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Nature Works grant, land acquisition is key. Like if you already have it, then that's, you know, helps move your grant process along, and they'll have another round coming out. And then if we were to go with dog park, because it was high in the survey and it is not something we have in our community, we could really reach out, you know, like we do with people that would be interested in sponsoring. I feel like we have at least 4, maybe 5 veterinarian offices just up and down Main Street. If you've ever visited Plain Township's dog park off of Schneider, they have the sponsorships by various vets and pet groups and people that are very interested in animals. So we would try to seek those private donors so we can have that public-private partnership going on. And it is a minimal cost, like you mentioned, for a dog park. There's not too much other than cutting the grass, putting the fence around, parking maybe a little bit more, but it would be an amenity we don't have, so.
It helps, I had questions to see where this was
I
going.
had questions too, I had
Maybe,
research
you know,
to do.
maybe one of the things that you might want to do is, if you've got an application that we've submitted in the past, you might just pass it out, so people can see what kinds of questions, if you've got some
it's a
information on how they score those, you know, I think that would be illuminating, you know, because we know the state scores projects.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how do they score parks? What do they look for?
As we were looking forward for the investment for the future for that sector of our city, with the economic development that we are hopeful that's going to come through, we felt that this would be a great advantage for us to secure this property for the future businesses up there and residents and employees. It could be an area of leisure for them on their lunchtime, or again, whether it's going to be a dog park or multi-purpose facility, athletic field or something. We can float all those ideas as the future brings, but I just saw the potential for this, to have this added, especially in that ward with no park, but what it's going to bring to the community, whether it's just going to be able to go up there and watch my grandkids play around for a while. Oh, you know what, I'm going to go get a sandwich now, or I'm going to go shop, or I'm going to go get a beverage or something like that. And I foresee even ideas of having Wi-Fi up there so that, you know, or a pavilion, a number of things that we could have. But I just see this as a real potential for us, and for us to secure this property now at such a, I think, a very worthwhile, sound plan. It's just that investment for the future, and it adds a little bit more sustainability, I think, up there for the advancement of that sector of our city. So I just thank council for considering that.
Yeah, I think you've all done a nice job of trying to pull this together. Like I said, I had questions when I first saw it too, but
Absolutely.
had some research to do this weekend, and I feel good about it now. I absolutely see the necessity of getting it, so. yes.
What do the residents feel? Have we talked to any of the residents up there? I would always like to talk to my area,
I mean, I think.
Well, I mean, when you talk about the residents up there, I mean, you're really only talking about folks that live on East Wind and Orangewood, because it's all commercial around there except for those 2 streets. I lived there for 30 years before I moved out of Ward 1, and you know, that neighborhood remains a kid-friendly neighborhood. I mean, it's a place for young families to locate to that are there now. And I did with a previous member of council walked the neighborhood and talked to folks when the weather was nice, who were out, and explained to them what it was that we were thinking of doing back there, and met with, great fanfare. I mean, who doesn't want to park?
Right.
Yeah.
But it has to be, we respect that it has to be designed in such a way that,
A buffer.
a buffer. We expect that, the parking for this would be located closer to the commercial development, not towards the residential side of things. So, I mean, that's, we go through the planning process, the design process to get this moving. But, once we got this moving, we acquire the land, then we would start with the idea of, okay, it's 10.71 acres, plus the other land that we bought south of it. How do we start laying this out? What does it look like? Come back, other ideas, start plugging these different amenities into it. What makes sense? Can we do right now? What's the easy lift? Dog parks an easy lift, etc. Things like that. But it's most likely like a 5-year development plan. To get everything eventually up there. But,
Seems like a lot per acre, but seems like there's opportunities, so. I said, it seems like a lot per acre in pricing, but
well,
seems like there might be opportunity.
that price is comparable, within a few dollars of the price that we were paying for the Kmart property.
But you can't develop this land. You can't build on
Which
this
is,
land.
we gotta make sure we're talking about the right properties for people that don't pay attention, but, in my parlance in doing it, there's the Seritage property and the Kmart property. The Seritage property is the property that was developed in which a Kmart building sits on it. That's the Seritage property. The Kmart property is the surrounding 15 acres of wooded and swampy land that sold for about $30,000 an acre. So we're at
37 and change.
and this doesn't have a lot of the issues that other land has that needs to be remediated by whoever's developing it.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I would move that we add this to the agenda on emergency. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I just might add as color to that, that can go to 3 readings as long as on the 3rd reading it has the emergency clause in it so that it goes into effect with the mayor's signature. So we're okay not having to do that, like, be one and done next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and finally, street and alley.
So Mr. Stroya is out, so I will take this one on his behalf. So every year we have to sign an agreement to buy rock salt for our streets, and I think tonight's an appropriate night to address that subject and the need for it. We don't know when ODOT's gonna put it out there so that we can buy it. We wanna make sure that the city has the authority to make the purchase at a timely manner when that rock salt becomes available. Anything else you'd like to add, Patrick, or?
Well, I would just add that you said it kindly about ODOT and when they put things together and get it out. Sometimes it's June, sometimes it's February. It's hard to get a read on it, but what is required in order to participate is council passing an ordinance authorizing us to participate. Without that, there's no waiting on it. If you don't have it when they go, you're out. Then you're buying rock salt through a direct supplier and you're paying not a cooperative rate.
If I might, for those of you who may have longer future here, we have had situations in the past, and Greg's nodding because I think you may have been on council, where we have missed this participation. And the costs are mind-bogglingly high, if you can get the salt. We don't want to be in a situation where we can't get it, or we have to go to other communities to borrow it. So just put this in your mental file, that this is something that should be done soon after the first of the year to get ready to do that.
Yes, and,
Because there's a real penalty for missing it.
and make sure that you understand that this is not for right now. This is for the year ahead. What we have done here over the last 7 years or so we have put the city in a position where we've stockpiled enough salt to carry us through the current season, and that this allows us to buy at a really low rate for a year ahead of now, as opposed to buying it like today, the spot price for what it is per ton. We're always trying to stay that year ahead.
22, 23 winter season. So, I make a motion that we put this on the agenda to pass with an emergency clause so that they have that authority to join the cooperative.
Revolt will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we will move that forward. Okay, I think that does it for our committee of the whole. I move to adjourn.
Revolt will second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned, and we'll take a few seconds. Before we move into our regular council meeting. Yeah. Captain, aren't there so many entities that make the news for not buying salt ahead of time?
Oh, yeah.
And the cities are just stuck with such money if they can even get it.
If you can get it.
Yeah.
$1,000, $2,000
Yeah.
a ton.
Mhm.
Just because you can't get it.
Right.
How bad do you want it?
Yeah. How much do we go through a year?
Very-
Well, yeah, I mean, they go.
Like right now, we're not giving us relief here this week,
Yeah.
so we hope that we get a few weeks where it doesn't. I'd say we go for maybe half of it.
No kidding.
Patrick, do you know how much, I'm sure we have it, like, when we have to do all city snow plow, and how much that costs?
Well, like we had that on Martin Luther King Day,
Yeah.
so everybody was on
You watch
holiday.
it.
on-
Deutsch, one guy.
And everybody was out, and they were there for 18 hours. 23 hours. So it's a fortune.
Yeah.
You know, I go out, I drive around, over in Belden and over in Plain, I was looking at, you know, there were right turn lanes, they weren't even plowed.
Yeah, yeah.
Salad.
My wife was going to Joanne's today, went out Everhard Road, got down there to Everhard, and turned around and came back. And this was in the afternoon,
Yeah.
early afternoon.
I just.
Because the road was in such
I came
horrible
at
condition.
4, and right at North Canton,
Mhm.
completely different.
Well, that's what I was gonna say,
Yeah.
at 4 o'clock, I had to go to the strip, and I came back, and, you could see the line,
Yeah,
so, kudos.
interesting. Okay. We're good? Okay. Okay, welcome to the North Canton Regular Council meeting on January 24th, 2022, beginning at approximately 7:57 p.m. Can we please have a call to order? I just did that. Welcome. Okay, who would like to do the opening prayer tonight? Anybody?
Reverend Revolt will give you an opening.
All right, thank you. You can all please stand.
Let's bow our heads. Almighty God, we are grateful this evening to be together to deliberate and to touch our city's future. Provide us with wisdom and insight. As we look to you, we ask that you bless those in our safety and our service departments who represent the best of our community. In your Son's name we pray. Amen.
Can we still have a couple moments of silence in honor of Chad Logan, who passed away and was an outstanding community member and a solid, good person?
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Member McLean. Here. Member Warren.
Here.
Member Warren.
Here.
I should look up and see who's saying that.
Great.
Member Revolt.
Here.
Member McNeely.
Here.
Member Orr.
Here.
Member Troy is absent.
Can we please make a motion to excuse Member Stroyer?
So
Wolf moves.
Second.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion passes. Okay, may I have a motion and a second to approve as listed? Minutes from December 13th, 2021, Committee of the Whole, minutes from December 2021, City Council meeting, December 2021 Finance Report, and final appropriations and interfund advances and transfers to true up line items and close out fiscal year 2021 as authorized by Ordinance 61-2021.
I'll make a motion.
Revolt will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. At this time, members of the public wishing to address City Council may do so. Each speaker may have 5 minutes. Please begin by stating your name and address for the record. As a reminder, the rules are on the screen and violation is grounds for termination of your speaking time. You have 5 minutes.
Because I'm awaiting cataract surgery, I may go over the limit by about an hour or so. Thank you. First, Larry Tripp, 11270 East Maple, North Canton, Ohio. First, let me congratulate those new members of council. I, for one, are encouraged and anxious to see new faces on council who I hope are filled with enthusiasm, dedicated, and fresh ideas. My remarks are usually predicated on actions taken and/or words spoken or lack thereof by city personnel, elected or otherwise, in fulfilling their duties. You will see me attend and speak at a lot of meetings with my goal to see a local government that is citizens-friendly, prepared, progressive, knowledgeable, and dependable in fulfilling their commitment to its citizens. Having said that, my opinion for the past few years is that this city has been mired by lack of leadership, turmoil, and just poor government, with the likes of the creation of the law director type council and now an administrative council. Poor council leadership. And to back this up, one only has to look up and down Main Street at the growth and no growth of any real significance the past years. Some members of council and other representatives may say the seeds for progress have been planted and changes are forthcoming for a new vibrant community. However, as time moves along, it appears these seeds are growing into weeds as we watch other communities create new opportunities, jobs, and new businesses for their citizens to enjoy. It has been my pleasure the past few years to hold telephone conversations with 4 of the 7 members of council, Councilman Matheny, Orr, McKeister, and Stroya. My wife says in some cases heated discussion, but I think nothing more than a couple of men discussing world affairs sitting on the patio with a couple of brewskis. My first concern was the new numbering system and the creation of a legislative year. I understand it is merely a numbering system change, but the implementation is my concern. Conversation with Councilman Stroyer indicated the idea came from discussions between the city administrator and council clerk, and upon and upon completion came to him. Why wouldn't the council clerk address the issue with the council president to whom he reports prior to do any research? Why was the full council not made aware of changes? Why change a system that has worked for over 40 years? Where was Mr. Diorio on this issue when he was a member of council? Is this a sign of the continuance of the administrative council form of government? Number two, for the past 2 meetings, no city videos and very, very poor sound qualities. Number three, poor council person decorum displayed by council person arriving in council chambers, sitting wherever desired, sits what appears to be at least 1 foot in chair as viewed by the video supplied by Mr. Osborne as a courtesy to the citizens. And I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading this. Okay, I'll skip that. But anyway, and then leaves unannounced. This has occurred on the December 2021 meeting. No record of council excusing this person to leave. If this disrespect of council decorum is based in any shape or form of COVID, then why did the individual even come to the meeting? Number four, another issue, the language of Ordinance 13-2022. As I read the ordinance, as voted upon, I came to believe that nothing was done, that the voting was done on an issue.
Larry, you need to finish up.
Pardon me?
You need to finish up. Your time's up.
Forget it.
Thank you.
You're just like everybody else, except
I
you're
know, I
worse.
follow the rules.
I was talking about you, of course,
I
you
know,
realize
I
that.
know.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak in the public?
Have fun, Mr. Osborne.
There was a time here 20 years ago when council was very amenable to letting senior citizens speak. That was very poor judgment on your part. Chuck Osborne,
We have
307
rules that you
Fairview
need to
Street,
follow,
Southeast.
And if you
North.
can't follow them, you can leave. These are the rules. Since I've been on council, that is what we have followed. You have 5 minutes, which is more than any other entity allows.
Chuck
Proceed.
Osborne, 307 Fairview Street, Southeast, North Canton, Ohio. In 2009, the position of Assistant Council Clerk was eliminated, leaving former Council Clerk Gail Kalpac to handle all duties of the Council office. Mrs. Kalpac had trained in the Council office for nearly 10 years when she assumed the duties of Council Clerk upon the 2004 retirement of former Council Clerk Mary Louise Biddle. Mrs. Biddle had trained in the Council office starting in 1985 under former Council Clerk Mariam Wilson Barr, who served 25 years in the Council office. Without exception, when each of these individuals assumed the position of Council Clerk, they were all well versed in compliance with the city charter, Ohio laws, and policies and procedures of the city. Sadly, all of this experience and knowledge began to erode when the city hired its first only full-time law director, Tim Fox. Mr. Fox was intent on changing the policies and procedures of the city, and this made working conditions difficult for Mrs. Kalpac, who chose to take retirement in 2014. With no assistant council clerk working at the time, there was no one trained or prepared to take over the vitally important position of council clerk. The council clerk that replaced Mrs. Kalpac had no interest in learning North Canton council clerk position, and her performance resulted in her dismissal. Law Director Fox was ultimately forced out of his position as well. The turmoil and damage inflicted at City Hall through each of these poor hiring practices has continued in my estimation. The new choice for the city's council clerk was a recent college graduate who had not trained under a previous council clerk and was not even given the benefit of a guided tour of how the council office functioned. In my opinion, the new council clerk exhibits the same mindset of the previous council clerk and law director, that they know best and that they are going to do it their way. The most recent manifestation of this is the needless and arbitrary decision to change the numbering of ordinances passed by council. For the last 42 years, ordinance numbers have been assigned consecutively, starting with number 1 in the calendar year the ordinance came to council for a vote. There has never been a problem. It works. It simplifies tracking and filing. It has nothing to do with the terms of council. The perfect storm is the fact that we now find 4 or 7 members of council having absolutely no council experience. A 5th member of council has served but 1 term, and further, that member is now council president. So, there you have it. We have a council clerk who has no knowledge or experience now advising members of council who themselves have no previous knowledge or experience. The city of North Canton needs a comprehensive legislative audit, ASAP. I do not understand the mindset of individuals who walk into a new job and then dictate how they will do that job. Why does the current council clerk have no respect for past practices and procedures? Is there gratification from reinventing the entirety of city government? This was the attitude brought to the job by the previously dismissed council clerk and now dismissed law director. And that attitude cost them their jobs and resulted in people now winging it, causing confusion for citizens and others at City Hall. I see the attitude of, I am going to do this job my way, repeating itself. Having served on this council body and attended council meetings for nearly 20 years, I thought I understood North Canton City government. Sadly, I did not recognize what I had witnessed at your last council meeting held December 20th, 2021. 1. Why did you ask for recommendations from the Planning Commission on zoning amendments to which you had already given a first reading? A simple letter to the Planning Commission and a voice vote from council asking for recommendations for all zoning amendments would have sufficed. 2. None of the legislative amendments on the agenda complied with the city charter, as the charter requires that each proposed amendment include the entire ordinance or section being amended, be repeated in the amended ordinance. 3. Ordinances 1222 and 13-2022 did not appear on the meeting agenda, and thus this was a violation of Ohio open meetings laws. I also do not believe this legislation was ever discussed in committee. Mr. Revolt, they apparently do not like your previous 35, 40 years, whatever it is you served on this council. Same goes with Mr. Diorio. And lastly, your purchase or proposed purchase for parkland, why are you paying more than twice what the auditor has it appraised for? You're paying almost, what was it, $298,000? And the property is appraised for $156,000.
Chuck, you need to sit down.
And it's trash property. You've admitted you can't build on it. So it's not going to race away from you.
You need to sit down.
Thank you. Also, I'm still waiting to hear from people to come back and look at the lighting violation at my home. Please call me.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Oh, yes.
excuse me.
Yes. Anyone else would like to speak? Okay.
Are we on tape, Mr. Osborne?
I'm sorry?
Are we on tape?
You tell me. You have a camera up
Are
there.
you recording?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. I think it's important that people who are watching this meeting this evening understand that much of what Mr. Osborne has raised tonight are non-issues. Whether it's numbering or an agenda or violation of charter, he willy-nilly establishes a claim without bona fide legal evidence. No more perfect example of reckless disregard for facts is your ad hominem attack upon our clerk. The fact of the matter is, there was a small group of which you were a part that opposed hiring this clerk. The fact of the matter is, all have conveniently forgotten the roles they played in making it difficult to hire a clerk. The toxic behavior at that particular podium, Monday night after Monday night, in which the integrity and character and intelligence and ability of the people around this table is impugned, discourage people from applying. We had one who actually interfered in the hiring process by driving to that person's place of employment unannounced. And of course, we had another who, when contacted by active clerks, discouraged those individuals from applying. I think it's important that the people who are listening tonight understand that Mr. Young interned with the city. He was a known quantity. He had come from Walsh with a full academic scholarship. I repeat, a full academic scholarship. He graduated summa cum laude. We have had no clerk in the history of the city that has occupied that office with those credentials. Moreover, Mr. Osborne conveniently overlooks the fact that upon the appointment, Mr. Young inherited an office that was a wreck. Documents missing, files in disarray, etc.
Thanks for confirming what I just said.
Prior.
I'm not the council president, but I'm going to ask her that if you interrupt me again, to have you removed from this building. The fact of the matter is, no clerk has come to this position with the credentials, or, frankly, facing the challenges that he had. Compounding all of this was the fact that he could not engage in training through the Clerks Association because of the COVID pandemic, which shut everything down. So, no experience, keenly intelligent, great initiative, quickly took command and made order from chaos. And he did it with very little direction. This was astonishing. I think all of those who appointed him had confidence in his ability, and he has proven the fact that he could get the job done. Every issue that Mr. Osborne mentioned tonight has a legal response that would demonstrate he is incorrect. The fact is, we believed that we wanted to reorder the way this city operated. We did not want it in chaos. We wanted collaboration and cooperation. We wanted to work as a team. And it so happened that we thought that the clerk should be an important part of that team, particularly as we sat in and we planned major pieces of legislation and the timing and execution of those pieces of legislation. I think we've done a pretty the clerk has done a pretty spectacular job given the circumstances over the last 24 months. Moreover, I, for one, and I think others on council, wanted a clerk who would do more than type minutes. I wanted an individual, and I speak only for myself, who could research in detail issues and provide us with insight and options. And this clerk has done that time and time again. We have much better insight into certain public policy issues and questions than we ever did from any other set of clerks. And I don't mean to diminish them. They were great clerks. But we wanted to move the operation to a higher level. Today, in 2022, the city of North Canton is not the city that I first joined in 1981, 40 years ago. It's not. Evidence? Tonight's discussion of groundwater protection. We didn't think about it in 1981. I think there's something at play here. And I don't know who's familiar, and I'm going to play amateur psychiatrist. But there's an illness called Munchausen by proxy syndrome. I don't know, anybody familiar with it?
Please.
Well, what it is that you have a caregiver who makes the person who's receiving the care sick. They create a crisis. And they go seek medical attention. They thrive on the attention when in fact they have either poisoned or they've ginned up symptoms in the patient. This is an illness. What causes a person to do that aren't well known. But psychiatrists link it to stress, anxiety, poor self-esteem, whatever. But what I can tell you, what I think we've got here is a political Munchausen by proxy syndrome, where every Monday night we have to have some crisis. Now, for those of you who are new, let me just share something I've said to some of you privately. This kind of conduct that you saw tonight damages our city. It discourages investment. If the only thing you heard was that, or the preceding speaker, you would think that the place is in shambles. We're fortunate to have that clerk. And I'll tell you one thing right now. When I see an email, and I don't have it right in front of me, where they call the last meeting horrible, you know, come on. The council president is new. He might make a mistake. It might not run smoothly. Cut him some slack. If you want people to run who are talented and competent, they're not going to come up here on Monday night to be called an idiot and a fool. They're going to protect their professional reputations. That kind of conversation does this community no good. Absolutely none. You can disagree, but you don't have to be disagreeable. I've read these emails, I've listened to the comments, and they are harmful to the nth degree. I, for one, support this clerk. He's done a terrific job under the most trying circumstances. He has helped other communities organize their meetings by Zoom. Lest we forget that this particular clerk, for the first time in the city's history, wrote legislation live at a council meeting. So we didn't have to buck it off for 2 weeks. He's done a terrific job. And I, for one, take exception to the characterizations that Mr. Osborne has provided or used for this clerk.
And Mr. Tripp.
And Mr. Tripp. It's got to, I'm telling you, it's got to stop, folks. And as long as I'm here, I don't expect to hear that kind of language again. We're done, as far as I'm concerned. It's got to stop. I'm done.
Madam President, I'd like to
Sure.
address some of the comments that were made. Just, so for the record, I was not involved in the decision on the numbering of your ordinances. I don't care
No one cares.
how you number them.
Exactly.
It's not
arbitrary.
It's not my
Right.
concern. But, yesterday is over. I don't know if you know that. It's over. I don't care what somebody from the past is saying how they used to do it,
Right.
okay? And change is an inevitable part of life. We have to, if we don't change, everything else is changing around us. We're just going to find ourselves further and further behind. And I guess, to some extent, in a lot of conversations that I've had with some of the speakers tonight over the years, there are parts that we can agree upon. And I can attest, and I think Ms. Farina will be with me here, this place was a wreck. Not gonna lament about it, I'm gonna fix it. And I think that has been the mission that we've been on for the last 5 years. Now, I recognize that we would like to have, the entire Main Street redeveloped. And, some are complaining that it's not moving at a fast enough pace. I don't think that perhaps they see all the change that is there, they only see what they want to see. But you can only move forward if you're building upon a foundation that's solid. We didn't have that, but we do now. And I take great pride in the job that the administrative team has performed since you have been so kind to confirm me as your administrator. And it has involved a lot of change in personnel, a lot of having to get the right people in at the right job with the right attitude, with the right performance to make things happen. And we're doing that, and we continue to do that, and I think that's what is enabling us to take on such major initiatives that we do. A land banking program, handling the economic development, a park system that other communities have park directors that do research, that park department employees, that, this is all handled administratively internally so that we get the most bang for our buck. So in my opinion, and it's not because it's me, if someone else was sitting in this chair and they had done the things that we have accomplished, and when I got here, I made a list of all the things that were wrong, all the things that needed to be taken care of, and, it doesn't necessarily involve council. These were administrative things that just weren't working right. But we fixed those things. And so I'd like to think of us today as I think this administrative team is the greatest of all time. I can't think of an administration that has done more in more trying circumstances with less to work with. My God, if we had had the Hoover Company and this, focus that we have in these abilities and these resources, where we could be with all that cash cow over there, but we don't have it. So here we are. I would just ask you all to keep in mind that sometimes when there is change on city council, it reminds me of when we get to hear these grievances over and over and over and over again, it reminds me of an episode of Seinfeld. The Christmas episode, the Festivus, when Mr. Costanza gets out the poll, it says Festivus for the rest of us, and now is the time for the airing of the grievances. And this is what we go through. And so there's 4 new members of council that are going to hear 4 new, hear things that have gone on in the past, in order to create a crisis, to create a situation. And this crisis and these situations detract from our ability to stay focused on what you want us to do. So, public records requests, yep, fill them out. One phone call that leads to a whole bunch of phone calls that come into us, it just takes away a lot of time that I just don't feel that we have. So I'd like us to be able to remember that even though you may be hearing something for the first time, it's not something that's being heard for the first time. And, in regards to lighting issues over at the YMCA, the administration has looked into that. We've determined, contrary to other opinions held outside of us, that there isn't a violation there. So we're done with looking at that. Whether you all want to go do that, that's up to you. I'm just telling you from my perspective that we're done with that. We have vetted that issue, and we just don't have an agreement. We agree to disagree over that issue. But let's keep in mind that in order to move forward, we have to be able to do so in a way in which we can have differences of opinion, we can have discussions about those differences of opinion, and at the end of the day, we just may have a difference of opinion. But it doesn't need to be animosity, it doesn't need to be in an effort to tear people down or to tear the community down, because in the end, if we don't move forward, we're just moving backward. And there's a lot of backwardness around us that is, can come our way. I don't know if you've seen a lot of the turmoil in the surrounding townships with issues in their elected offices and whatnot, and you know, that's where North Canton used to be. We had that, and to some of the points that were made, there were people that helped contribute to that. But we're not on the front pages anymore, and we don't want to be, because we finally are moving the boat, rowing it in the same direction. So, thank you.
If I may.
Mayor?
Yes, I think we're very fortunate to have the young man who serves as our clerk of council. The ideas that he's brought, his time and his talents and his skills are evolving, but we have been successful in the legislation that's been presented, the updates, his willingness to go outside our city to help other communities when they were going through public meeting issues. I feel very fortunate to have the team that I'm working with right now in our administration. I look at our total employees that we have. I sense a different spirit, a spirit of support that when I'm out in our different departments, that their attitude and their care for the city and for their position and working has been to the positive. I appreciate the mentorship that I've received from our city administrator, from members of council, from our finance director, from our engineer. So I feel very, very confident that what we're doing is the right thing and what best thing for the city. And that we're going forward, folks. The past is in the past. I recognize that. I honor the past. But our goal for us, I believe these last 2 years, one, to get through COVID, but we weren't going to sit here and wring our hands and say, oh my gosh, we're not going to do anything. We're going forward with what we have, use our talent, our resources, our capital to improve this city. And I think our biggest obstacles that we have overcome was the separation of government, the separation we had with our educational communities, and our separation with businesses. I see us now turning that page. The seeds of progress, as was talked about before, yes, they're being planted. But we have bridged that gap. We have mended our relationship with our educational communities, okay? And I believe we're bridging the gap with business and trying to bring that economy that we've been missing for so many years. And it doesn't take, it's all of us working together on this. And I just, we're looking for achievements this year, not just results, but achievements. And it's been hard these last 2 years to get to this point where I believe we're going to see those achievements come through. And people will see that progress is going on. Buildings are going to be going up. Steel will be going up. So, it takes time. And I'm finding that out, that it's a little different from being in law enforcement. You call us, we take action, okay? And legally, morally, and ethically. But in working with government and businesses, there's a lot of meetings that goes on and discussions, and you've all been part of these things. So I understand that we're going to have disagreements, and I get that. And but keep in mind, we have a goal to go, and I want to make our city the best that we can. Okay, the best that it can be, because we're trying to make it better and stronger. So. I know there's been disparaging remarks about us and administration and council, but we can agree to disagree. I know that might be very trite, but no matter what, we're going forward, folks, okay? We're going to do it together and working together. And we'll work with the community and our city, through our relationships with our community. So my 2 cents for this evening. And again, I understand our citizens are free to come up and make their statements known, but I also believe that we can do that respectfully and tactfully. So thank you for that, for the time, Madam Vice President.
Sure, John?
And real quick, being a new councilman here, I've lived in the city 36 years. I've seen some good times, I've seen some bad times. One word we don't use enough is respect. Respect is, you have to respect each other. Chuck, I love a lot what you say, I hate a lot what you say. It would be nice for you to come up and say some positive things. We need people like you to be the watchdog of the city. As I knocked on over 900 doors when I was running for election, I heard a lot of things. Ben, I go to Ben, I consider you're younger, but you're a mentor. I can learn from you. If I can't find it from him, I might call Daryl or what. We're here to learn, all right? The past is the past. The only thing we can learn from the past is just a few things. Maybe we don't want to make the same mistake 2 or 3 times. But I'm tired of hearing about the past. It's now and in the future. And I think with the new council, our administration is great. We'll get to that. It didn't take, in North Canton, you know, you talk to people who live outside North Canton. I think they're jealous. They think our noses are up in the air and all of this. That's the past. They're jealous of what we have here. We have a community. And everyone in the community counts. You know, Ben does a great job. That's all I can say. Chuck, I respect you. I respect some of your opinions. Others, yeah, you know. It's like that. But what's wrong, some of the things that might be wrong with the country, whatever happened, we agree not to agree. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's all I have to say, but thank you.
I just wanted to comment, as someone who was here when we hired Chuck, part of the old group. And when you kept saying I for one, Daryl, it's not I for one, it's I for all of us. And I know you just said that.
I don't mean to put
No, I know.
my words in somebody else's
I
mouth.
know that, but I wanted to step in and be like, no, count me in everything that you said, and especially regarding Ben. We took a really different approach, and I was on that hiring committee when we hired Ben. And we weren't looking at, because we knew we could get the expertise from people like Meryl and the people that do that for a living. And we wanted something different when we hired Mr. Young, and we've gotten it. And we are pleased with what he's done and enabled our city to do and move forward with. If we don't allow each of us to make mistakes or Ben to make mistakes, we're never going to learn. And so if you want to come up and seriously talk about a numbering system, Chuck, we're into so many bigger things, we don't care. And I hope people were listening to that, because if they think that that's seriously what the city, that's all they have, that's the issue, they're laughing. No one cares about the numbering system. If you want to talk about where I sit in a meeting, no one cares. They're just glad people are here to vote and move things forward. They're glad that we show up when there's COVID, when there's snow, when everybody else is shutting down tonight. We're here. You haven't asked any of those questions. And the funny thing is, Chuck, is you continue to ask about change, but if it's not the change that you want, such as new light poles at North Canton, which we're not coming to your house. There's no way I'm going upstairs into your bathroom to look at some light that I've looked at from the outside. I'm not coming. I've talked with administration and we're not coming to your house for that. So stop bringing that up. But if you don't think that the change is happening, it is. And you better get on board and get with our system, because we're making huge strides. And we're not going to talk about the numbering system or where people sit in council. We're all grown-ups, and we know where each other are, and we know when we leave a meeting. So please know that, and we will move forward with all the great things we're doing, from buying rock salt ahead of time, to making our streets clean, to making our personnel amazing, to amazing parks that people are talking about in the snow that they've never been on, to developments, to people wanting to work with us, to Patrick getting call after call about, are you developing this? Are you doing this? So make note of those great things that we're doing, and we're going to move this train with or without you.
You expect a response?
No, there's no response.
Well, you were looking
Is
at
there
me like you
any
expected
old
a
business? Is
response.
there anyone else that has anything else to
Yeah,
say?
he's out of order.
Okay, old business.
No, let's move on.
All right. We need a motion and a second to read the title and ordinance only of Ordinance 70-2021.
Revolt moves.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Will you please read the ordinance?
All in favor?
All in favor, sorry.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
An ordinance amending various sections of the City of North Canton zoning code and adding thereto new definitions and establishing a new chapter in order to establish a source water protection area and provide for the regulation of substances for the protection of groundwater resources within the source water protection area.
All right, this is what we discussed in the previous meeting about our source water protection. I don't know if there's anything else to add. I think we talked about it already.
Sounds good.
So I move that we adopt.
Just a point of order. Do we need to suspend the rules for committee report? Because we don't really have them. We discussed it.
This did get voted on committee. And so this got voted on committee on December 13th.
Okay.
And on December 20th, instead of adopting the first reading, we postponed it
Okay.
until planning commission.
Very good, okay. Is there a motion to adopt?
Second.
Yes, sir, there is.
Then I will revolt second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Ordinance number 72-2021. A motion and second to read by title only ordinance 72-2021.
Revolt moves to read.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
An ordinance amending chapter 1136 Main Street District's regulations, specifically section 1136.05, Schedule of Permitted Uses of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton to change drive-through facilities to a conditional use in the Main Street South zoning district.
Chairman Revolt.
It's been discussed. Reasons for this reviewed within the hour. Are there any questions? If none, I move we adopt the first reading of ordinance 72-21.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. A motion and a second to read by title only ordinance 01-2022.
Revolt moves.
Where in second?
In favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending chapter 159 Records and Archives Commission, specifically section 159.01, commission created member of the codified ordinances of the City of North Canton to adjust the membership thereof.
Who is talking about this one?
John and Ben.
Yeah. John, are you talking?
Yeah, on HC,
So this was, I had done some research on this state code relating to Records and Archives Commission, and it initially with the intent to replace the president of council with the clerk, because the clerk actually keeps the record. But in doing that research, I found that according to state code, the president isn't actually supposed to be on it in the first place. So this takes the president off of our records commission, in
Okay.
accordance with Ohio Revised.
And for the record, who would constitute that Records and Archives Commission in the city? Who are its members?
So the remaining members will be the administrator, the mayor, and a number of the public appointed by the mayor. And I believe the director of law is the fourth. There's a fourth person who's escaping my mind at the moment.
Okay, we've all got COVID on the brain tonight.
you heard what Ben said, so I agree, and,
Okay.
we'll have to
Do
vote.
we need a motion?
I'll move we adopt the second reading of ordinance 01-22.
For a second?
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Motion and a second to read by title only ordinance 02-2022.
So moved.
Revolt seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
This was,
I need to. An ordinance amending chapter 741 adult cabaret businesses of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton to update the definition of adult cabaret.
This was brought up at the last meeting about the adult cabaret. It came to our knowing of this as an outside firm called into the city, thinking that they were in the city, but they're into Canton. So it opened our eyes to the language of the adult cabaret business, so we need to update our rules for that. So I'm all in favor of this, and we can go ahead and move that on if I need a second.
Then we'll move to adopt the second reading of ordinance 2-22.
Okay, all in favor?
Can I get a second?
Second, sorry.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. A motion and a second to read by title only, ordinance 03-2022.
Revolt moves.
Second? We're in seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay,
An ordinance amending chapter 1739 violations and abatement of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton, specifically section 1739.01 and 1739.03, to allow for the expedited abatement of noxious weeds and rank vegetation.
John?
Yes, so we brought this up where before it could take 30 days, I think, if the weeds were up high and stuff by the time we got out there. Now we're sort of, once they're reported and we go out there, we're giving them a certain amount of time, what is it, a week or 3 days, something of that nature, Pat?
Yeah, if you'd like, Marty could fill you in here a little bit more.
Yeah, essentially this does reduce the current 30-day for essentially all of the other nuisance violations. This would specifically for, abatement of weeds and overgrown lawns and so forth to, we can get the 3-day notice on that. Reduce that there. Our standard practice is we do what we call knock and talk. So the code enforcement officer visits the property, will knock on the door and advise the resident of the ordinances and the requirements for maintaining their yards. Generally, if we don't make contact, then we do send a written courtesy notice. So we do build in additional time than what's required in the ordinance. In addition to that, we will be posting annually a notice in the newspaper every April ahead of time. So that's an additional notice as well.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we move forward with that.
Revolt will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion and second to read by title only, ordinance 04-2022.
Revolt will move.
We're in seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance authorizing the mayor of the City of North Canton to release the maintenance bond agreement between the city and Mckinley Appleberg Limited regarding improvements to be maintained in the sanctuary development phase 4.
Dave, are you gonna handle this?
Yeah,
Okay.
so Matt's not here, so in the sanctuary phase 4, Rob has signed off that they have met all of the criteria needed, and we can release their bond, the streets and the sewers and everything's in line. Anything you would like to add, Rob?
No, sir, you covered it perfectly.
Okay,
That's
and this
great.
is the second reading, so we've covered this before.
Okay.
I'll make a
Move we
motion.
adopt.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Let's move on. A motion and a second to read by title only, ordinance 05-2022.
Revolt will move.
We're in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending chapter 907, street excavations of the Codified Ordinances of the City of North Canton in order to establish separate processes for minor and major street excavations.
Dave, you're gonna handle this too?
Sure.
Okay.
So, we've talked about this in the past. We had a gentleman come in and speak because they wanted to change the apron and add an apron. There was no actual street invasion. And we went back and asked asked for them to adjust, that there would not be a large deposit made and then held waiting for instances where the street may dip or anything, since they were approaching into the street. So they went back, rewrote that, and those minor repairs that do not infect the street is now been listed as not requiring a deposit. And it's a benefit to our citizens that a citizen brought forward. I thought it was a good thing.
Yeah, I still remember him coming forward. That was great. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I'll make the motion that we pass the second reading.
We'll second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, that ends our old business. Now on to new business. Council must at this time make appointments to the Charter Advisory Board.
All right. The people I'd like to be nominated to this is Ron Phelps, Christina Hostetler, and Zach Fettman, and Mariam Ballman. And then Ben Young to represent the city on that. So, those are the four. Ron Phelps is, a retiree in town. Christina Hostetler, lives here in town on Harmon, and then Zach Fettman is a doctor of pharmacology and is he's a resident here of North Canton. They own Davies Drugs. And then Mariam Ballman, maybe Daryl, you might know her a little bit better than I do.
I think we all know Mariam. We do indeed. Just by way of background, Mariam has participated in 2 of the charter review commissions spread out over a 10-year period. She is extraordinarily knowledgeable in the operations of the municipality and has, I think, relatively keen insight.
And does anyone know Christina?
Christine, yes.
What does she do?
She works for, she just switched jobs. She was at the Rock and Roll, or not the Rock and Roll, the Inventors Hall of Fame.
Okay.
She works for an engineering firm
Oh, great.
up in Akron.
Okay.
And Ron Phelps, I think everyone knows Ron in town here. He was a custodian at the middle school who's helped out a lot on different things that I've been involved in. And each one of these prospective people all live in a different ward. And they go from ages 72 for Ron, and Zach is 26.
That's great.
So we have a lot of diversity.
That's what I wanted to know.
Mariam.
Oh, I don't know.
Don't
go there, huh?
Why not?
But I think it'll be a great commission.
That's great. Well, thanks, John. Thanks for working on that.
Yes.
It was one of your first roles. Appreciate that. Okay. Department reports. Deputy.
Well, we have to make a
Oh, we have to
vote.
make
I'll
with
make
the
a
vote?
motion. We accept that if I can get a
What do we need to do?
It's been moved
Discussion and
that
follow.
the slate,
Sorry.
as described, be appointed. I think
Yep, that's it. Motion and a second.
I will second that. Revolt will second.
Okay?
Is there any discussion?
Do we need to add in the mayor, who the mayor has appointed, and
Oh, yeah, that was what Charlie Grangine was
Yes.
the mayor's appointment?
Yes.
Does that need to go in there, Ben?
We can add it.
You do not have the power to say yes or no, but we can
Oh.
certainly state for the record that the mayor chose Charlie Grangine and Gina Alback as the
Right.
Got it. Okay, so all in favor of the
Aye.
appointments? Okay, any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So we have our Charter Advisory Board, 4 residents and 1 employee. Thank you. Okay, on to department reports. Director of Administration. Deputy Director. Deputy Director, sorry.
So I'll start with Park. We're buried under snow. So what can I say? There was a crew up from X-Turf to put the turf down, and so in the parking lot is the supplies, all the padding, all the infill, and the big rolls of turf. They were from Memphis, Tennessee, and they got to see what northeastern Ohio's like. So they got some of the padding down, they got the framing in, and then we just had to stop. So we're just watching the weather to let them know when they can come back. So speaking of snow, I think was it you, Mr. McLeister, was that your picture that I used then with the?
It
Did you get that early in the morning? So I posted out this picture of the trucks at the big snow.
That was
and said,
so good.
They
Oh
go
my
out
gosh.
so we can, and we got 150 positive Facebook comments. So I printed them, went down to the service garage, and just threw them all over the lunch tables and said, read it. And they were a
Yeah.
little apprehensive. And what did they say? Are they complaining? I said, not one.
No.
Thank you. We appreciate you. Teach classes to other communities.
Yeah.
So that was great. And just along the lines of that, everything that was said, Daryl, you mentioned cooperation and collaboration, and that's what we are now. That is not, like Patrick mentioned, when I started here, there were walls up. This is not your area, this is not your department, that is not my job. We have eradicated those words. We work together. We are all on one boat, we're all rowing in the same direction, and we don't have time for divisive comments. It's as simple as united we stand, people, and divided we fall. So we don't pay attention to divisive comments. We know we have the right people in place. With recruiting, one of the things that we have to do is attract top talent to this team. Attracted this one from City of Louisville, got the county's best engineer here. We've got Marty running the billing department. I mean, and Ben is top talent.
Yeah.
We attract top talent, and then the second part is retaining them. You attract them, you motivate them, you retain them, and that's what we're doing as a we call it the A team. And that even goes out into the operational areas. So talking about snow removal, it was all hands on deck. It wasn't just street department, it's sewer, it's water distribution. And they all worked together, I think, better than ever before. And because even in those areas, they used to be a little bit like, not my job, I'm not doing it. Nope, it's all hands on deck. Because bottom line is we have a mission for this city, we have a mission statement to be a city of choice in northeastern Ohio, providing exceptional services to the businesses and to the community and residents we serve. And I think that is finally a culture that didn't exist here. It's like in just the blood of everyone who works here, and it's great to work here. And so that's all I wanted to say, and that's my report.
Thank you. Okay, Director of Administration.
No report.
Alrighty, Mayor Wilder.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I think you're right about the culture change, and we've said, I think, quite a bit about the direction our city wants to be going. I just want to thank the council again for approving not only the Charter Advisory Board, but I want to thank all the volunteers or our citizens who have agreed to serve on our boards and commissions for this year. And some will term out at the end of the year, and some will continue on. But just a thank you to those volunteers that we've contacted over the years to serve on all our boards and commissions. And again, our street department, it's hard to tell someone that our streets aren't heated, but we do the best we can to keep them navigable. So, and for our safety forces that were out there during the harsh weather, again, thank them for responding to the emergency calls that we had in this kind of weather. So that's really all I have. Looking forward to, again, achievements this year. That's my goal, to work on those seeds of progress that we have going forward. And let's see some results. I'm very cognizant of that, what the public is looking for, and as much as I am, the achievements for our city. And I think you'll see those hopefully, in 6 or 7 months come through. Thank you.
Director of Finance.
Thank you. I want to touch on just the year-end financial report, and Ben's going to pull that up on the screen. So if we just want to make a couple of points. So on page 2, we look at the income tax. That's kind of a really sporadic chart, and I know COVID has taken us in different directions. I did try to make some notes below the yellow that kind of define what the spikes in those graphs are. And it just takes you through each month over the past 6 or so years of where we are cash flow wise on income tax receipts. But year to date is what I want to highlight through the end of 21. It looks like we were about 1.5% higher than what we projected. And one of the pieces I want to kind of pull out of there is the skewed year of 2020, because we were 10.7% up. And that was very rare for a lot of communities in this area, did not see that, but during the COVID year we did. So if I do pull that year out, and we did have some refunds that we needed to issue, we're still right around a 13% increase over 19. So it's just really good news. It says that we have a pretty diverse income tax base here, as with our businesses, not a bedroom community. There's a lot of diversity there. The big question is, of course, the new House bill and what refunds for work from home is going to bring. And at this point, we were going to have a presentation from our RETA rep. He's going to be here on February 7th. With the weather tonight and the very long agenda, we thought we could reschedule him to a better date. So February 7th, he will be here to explain RETA services. We do have some new council people, and I want to familiarize you with those because I know you are the ones that get those questions about their processes and their legal department and what they vet and how they go through with our residents and our businesses. So I think it's important for you to hear from them what their processes are. He'll be here on the 7th with that presentation. But it is just an unknown. Basically, the House bill is back to it. The onus is pre-COVID. It's on the employer to report income tax withholding where the employee is working, not where the business is located, as of this year. So we're 2021, we have no idea who worked from home. If the employer continued to withhold, we have their withholding. So until they file for refund, the employer will need to certify days out. And we assume, or we are expecting, that employers are withholding correctly back to where employees are working for 2022 and going forward. So as we do get updates for work from home and refund requests, I'll certainly keep you updated on that. But I just wanted to kind of explain some of those spikes in that graph. And then looking at the next page with the cash, general fund cash balance, when all funds, actually on page 3. So all funds, and I'll just take you through year to date, we had $46.5 million in revenues and $46.5 million in expenses for the year. And each of those, of course, are accounted for in their own fund. We did give you prior year cash balance just for comparison reason, but that chart then on the bottom, again, takes us through month by month. It's sort of a benchmark that we keep track of, and we draw sort of our line in the sand, and we use that as far as what percent of our funds that we can invest. So we have interim funds, we have idle funds, we have funds that are matched for debt payments and 3 payroll months and all of those things, but this chart is sort of our benchmark. We did end the year a little lower than expected, and that was due to the advance to the parks project, which that money will be returned. So again, it's just a point in time. It's a cash flow issue. It's not a cash issue. So I wanted to just explain that as well. And then page 4 of 5, that is just where the budget ended up, but because council gives me the authority, and that was through Ordinance 61, to true up the budget lines, it is merely mirroring where the actuals ended up on purpose, and that makes for a much cleaner audit. The only reason the budget would be a little higher is for encumbrances of things that we have ordered or services provided prior to year end that we didn't quite get the invoice for, so we carry that forward. And also for accrued wages, the pay periods are 2 weeks behind, so we carry forward enough budget to cover the accrued wages and benefits that are due in January for December. And then the very last page, I just wanted to touch on the bank reconciliation. So again, looking at that cash flow line, the 85% is the amount of monies that we have invested in our portfolio. Our current portfolio is an average yield of 1.54%. Don't get too excited about that, but we are pretty excited about it because we have a maturity duration of about 2.5 years, a little under 2.5 years. We can invest up to 5 years at a time, but with rates, we've been keeping that a little bit conservative. Our estimated interest income is around $266,000 a year, so we still are doing pretty well with investing 85% of our money. And then I wanted to remind everybody that we do, I know with this year-end report, I've also given council the quarterly report. So you have the revenue report, you have the expense report, you also have the checkbook for the last quarter. But at the end of the year, then, we upload the entire annual checkbook to the Treasurer of State's office. We participate in that transparency. There's a link on the city's website. It's called ohiocheckbook.com. Every transaction that has come through the city on the expense side is there. And then we also still utilize OpenGov, and that is where we begin with our budget cycle. But now that is integrated with our accounting system, and every week that we write checks or every day that we deposit money, overnight it's updated. So OpenGov is a transparency of there's reports out. It's not just the budget. There is the budget when you go to that. But then if you click on reports, there are monthly reports, there are year-to-date reports. You can drill down into those reports. So I just want to encourage you to use it. If you have any questions, of course, reach out and we can help with that. So. And just on a side note, we did post today the Deputy Finance Director position. I know we've put that on hold for the last year and a half. We posted that on the city's website, LinkedIn, and then some professional organizations like Government Finance Officers Association, Ohio Municipal League. Before we posted it though, Catherine and I reviewed it and even said, hold on, don't post that. Let me see if Ben has a brother. And that's true, that happened today. So I mean, the quality in working with Ben has just been an outstanding experience on my end as well.
And Ben, do you?
I'm an only
He's an
child.
only child, so we posted it.
So on that note, just always networking is the way
Right.
you find people. So now that you know that, that's the succession plan. Deputy Finance Director, someone that would come in, work a few years, and Gina wants to go out and enjoy the benefits of Oprah's and lots of years of public service. So keep that in mind. Let them know that position's open in North Canton.
Okay,
Thank you.
our city engineer.
Thank you,
Rob.
Madam Vice President. Unexpectedly, got some great news this afternoon from SCATS and federal grants. They administer federal monies to Stark County.
Yes.
We received $495,000 for this year to repave all of Glenwood Street.
Wow.
That's from
Wow.
South Main clear to Whipple.
Wow.
We'll do 3-inch overlay with the top will be the polymer that we like to put on our highly traveled roads.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll get to work on that
When are
this
you
summer.
thinking you'll start in the summer?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, we have to award the contract with fiscal '22, so that's by June 30th. And then we'll get it done later this summer.
Wow. Your percentage, is amazing. Do you have a brother? Gina, that could be another
I would
option.
take that one too, you're right, yeah.
Right, let's check. A sister, why are we saying brother?
Yeah,
Sister's
yeah.
fine. Yeah, that's amazing. I can't believe all the money that we've received. Thank you.
Yeah, this one even surprised me.
Really?
Yeah, I applied for it last July, but what had happened is we had a lot of projects countywide come back in under budget, plus an influx of some new federal monies. And we're only allowed to roll over about $1.2 million a year. If we don't spend that, we lose it.
Yeah,
It'll go to other counties, wherever in Ohio, other metropolitan planning organizations. So there's always a rush to have what we call reservoir projects, which are paving. So we happen
right.
to
So
have
do you
one.
think possibly last year it was because so many people weren't working and then people maybe had jobs but they couldn't get them done? Would that have anything to do
There's
with
a
it?
lot of factors. Some
Okay.
things just fall behind.
Yeah.
Right now it's tough to get engineering done. because
Right.
There's so much federal money out there.
Right. That's great.
There's
We
a lot
need
of
to talk
reasons,
about
but
this.
I don't ask. I just
I
take
don't
it.
know. It's not like a gift. I don't know.
Show me the money.
Thank you. Part of that 18,
Or
right, Catherine?
why?
Okay, and Clerk of Council, Mr. Young.
I just wanted real quick, since you just appointed them this evening, the Charter Advisory Board, where that's going. Hopefully we'll have a kickoff meeting later this week. As of the last time I checked, which was yesterday, we had 16 potential amendments submitted from all of you / the public.
That's great. It's exciting. Again, change. Nice, moving forward. Okay, anything else? All right, thank you. Final call for new business? Oh, that's right, sorry. Yeah, just 9. Okay, Mr. McKinley, Ward 1.
Thank you so much.
Sorry about that.
I do have a couple things I wanted to talk about tonight. And the first being, although I admit it was not in Ward 1, I think it'd be remiss if we did not acknowledge the fact that Whole Latte Love had their grand opening on the 15th. I know I saw the mayor there. He was cutting the ribbon, and I saw Christina there as well. It was a fantastically attended event, and that truly is a wonderful place, and I think we're lucky to have them in the city of North Canton. So I'd encourage you guys to go out and take a look at it as well. Also following shortly thereafter, well, and even tonight, I just want to thank the administration for the great job that they did on the roads. I think before the meeting I mentioned to Patrick that, or I think and to you too, Mrs. Warren, I was coming from the strip back into North Canton this afternoon, and there is a clear delineation between Jackson Township and North Canton, so kudos to you guys. I also wanted to thank Patrick. We had a conversation the other day about, I talked to the resident who was complaining about some speeding actually on my street, and since the police chief's here, I want to definitely acknowledge that it was not a blue Mustang GT, so I can promise you that. But I just want to thank you for the conversation, Mr. Delia. That's the end of my report.
Okay, Mr. McKinney, Ward 2.
Okay, Chairperson of Personnel and Safety, I'd like to congratulate our Chief Building Official, Martin Van Gundy, for being reelected to another 3-year term at the Ohio Building Officials Association Board of Directors. I think that's a testimony to the quality of the work that you do, being recognized and being part of that board. So, congratulations. So I would also be remiss if I didn't mention the hard work of all the people that are keeping our streets clean. And I asked for a list of names of people that are doing that. I think they need to be recognized individually for the work that they're doing and doing tonight, along with last week. And this is not just the first year, it's year after year. So I apologize in advance if I mispronounced somebody's last name. But to Brian Hill, Matt Morrow, James Martin, Steve Schneck, Todd Reed, Dan Richards, Anthony Brown, Matt Shaw, Bobby Beadle, Carl Redinger, James McKelvey, Paul Howard, James Hammondtree, Don Sonner, James Whaley, Gabe Schwally, Brian Kinner, Dylan Harshall, Dan Soapstone, Matt Gerber, Mike Guth, Joe Slider, John Minger, Jason Steininger, Andy Williams. And I know I messed up some of those names, and I do apologize for that, but it will be in the minutes and it will be spelled correctly to recognize the hard work that they do and the appreciation from all of us and all the residents and the hard work that you do.
Well, hopefully they can hear us. Very neat. That's great that you did that.
That's what I have to report.
Okay. No report, just kudos again to what our city is doing, and Catherine, you summed it up perfect with collaboration, cooperation, moving forward as a team. So thank you, everybody. Okay, Ward 4, John Orr.
You didn't have a report?
What?
You didn't have a report?
Just, that's very simple what I said.
Well, Ward 4, we've had a couple complaints, been able to handle them, no problem whatsoever. Great job by the streets department again, clearing that snow off. But as a citizen and a councilman, and we need to do something with our sidewalks. I know it's not the city, but I think we need to take a deep dive into the sidewalks, even on Main Street. If you look up and down, you know, the Y does a great job. In front of the Hoovers, they do a good job. St. Paul, somewhat, you know, sidewalks, because I have seen.
Are you talking about snow removal?
Yes.
Okay.
The snow removal is, I've seen a lot of kids having to walk on the streets because it's too much there. And it's a lot to ask, you know, it is the business responsibility. We might have to take a look at a nuisance, you know, it's just like weeds. You gotta get that snow out of there too for the kids to walk and stuff. So that's one thing I wanna look at. By talking to the residents of my ward, I had told them I would try to do a better job of communicating what the city is doing and getting the word out. How we communicate could be a couple different ways. We have to find that perfect way. The other thing that my residents want is maybe I'm gonna set something up here in the very near future of, on a Saturday morning, coffee with me, coffee with your councilman. This way I can hear, you know, what they like, what they don't like, and we can bring more people in helping us out. As being a councilman, you're more or less like a messenger for the city also. You have to keep your constituents in the loop. The other thing, I've got some people talking about wanting to lower the speed limit on Main Street. I will wanna talk about that possibly, at a later date. And, just a few things, but, the residents of Ward 4, they know how to get a hold of me. I'm meeting with one next week, and his resume was pretty good. And he's not a whiner, he just wants the city to be a progressive city like we all do. But thank you for everybody.
Great idea, John. Thanks. Mr. Revolt.
Before we conclude tonight's meeting, I think it's appropriate to note a second passing. And that is Dottie McGrew. She loved the city. She covered our council for probably close to 3 decades for the Beacon Journal, the venerable North Canton Sun, our town. I think all of us who had the pleasure of being in the council chamber with her were immediately smitten by her smile, her courteous demeanor, her sense of fairness, her high ethical standards, and her commitment to the truth. I can assure anyone who remembers her or didn't know her, she certainly was no pushover. Because she was capable with that pen of taking you to the woodshed. And you would have the pleasure of reading about your trip to the woodshed that very week. But I know we shouldn't look to the past, but in the past I think we can find a demeanor and a behavior that served her well and served our council and community well. And so wherever she is tonight, I think she is aware of our prayer for her and our gratitude for a job well done. And that is my report.
Okay. Ms. Weinrich.
Okay. So I'm new, and it's been brought up that a lot of us here are new, so I certainly understand that. And I just would like to thank the administration and fellow council members who've been here longer than I have. Certainly, I don't feel like any of us are winging it, as may have been mentioned, but we're learning, and I'm so grateful to everyone who is helping us and talking me through what to expect at these meetings. And if you think we're not all showing up at city council or at city hall walking over each other trying to find our footing, we are. I show up and I run into John and I run into Dave, and you know, we're all there trying to learn and do our best. So it's not easy, but we're up here and we're excited to be doing this work, and I'm just so proud to be at this table with these people. And then I just want to say one other thing too. I think one of the biggest issues that faces our city is the retention of young talent. We have these incredible schools. We have Walsh University, and we have a problem with people leaving. So I do just want to defend Ben Young here for a minute and say that we managed to keep him here. He graduated. He's brilliant, as John said. He's far younger than me, but he's a mentor. He helps me out in so many ways, like daily. And the fact that we have retained him, and then the fact that Matt, who's also young, Stroya, has stepped up and taken on this presidential role of this council, it's a big deal. It's a big responsibility, and again, not easy. But we're making improvements and we're streamlining, and I see it, and I just want you all to know that I support you and appreciate the work that you're doing, and I'm so glad that we have Ben and Matt. And then finally, just getting back to kind of my role here as chair of Parks, I did tour the Parks building on Maple, met with Brian Hill and Steve Shank, got to learn about some of their priorities, learned that they're out there driving snow trucks and plows whenever needed, which I don't think is what they were initially thinking, you know, their role would be, but no complaints. they spoke so highly of administration and of the direction the city's going, said they've never worked for better people. So it was really cool to talk with them and to get to see the work that they're doing in the wood shop. And, I've sat in meetings for Main Street Festival and the holiday tree lighting, and I always, Kelly Hart's always telling Steve Shank, like, you're gonna go and build this. I'm like, oh, this is where you build it, all right. So just good people, and it was great to learn that, and I'm just, as I said, learning and looking forward to learning more. That's all.
Thank you. Great report. You're right, no one's winging it.
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose, doing the best we can.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered everybody. I know Mr. Stroyer has been online all night listening to us. I think he said he was eating popcorn though. So he's not taking advantage of the cure, but he has popcorn he's eating tonight. Okay, is there a final call for new business? Okay, so looking at our meetings calendar, I'd like to make a motion and have a second to add a council calendar, a city council meeting on Monday, February 7th, following the committee of the whole. As Patrick said, there were a couple things that we need to move forward. He needs some approvals, and so we need to add that extra meeting. So we're going to put that with the committee of the whole meeting on the 7th, if you all agree.
Revolt will make a motion that
Go ahead.
we add that meeting,
Okay,
and we adopt the meeting calendar as proposed in item 13.
perfect.
I'll second.
You should note that in item 13, it spells out a meeting on January 31st, so you really don't want to say,
It says may be added.
you said as written.
I think Mr. Revolt meant on screen right now.
On screen,
Oh.
I'm sorry, on screen.
I don't have,
I'm old, don't
I don't have.
Same.
The garment department is.
Okay, so to be clear, we're talking about a meeting on February 7th. You can see in front of you, committee of the whole, and then a city council meeting, in order to expedite a few of the items that we talked about at our committee of the whole meeting tonight.
Nothing on the
So,
31st.
do we have a motion, Farrell?
That has been moved.
Okay, and second?
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the meeting calendar is set. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
Revolt will move.
Vote.
Second.
Second by Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you so much for coming out tonight.